Hey, everybody. I'm Rose Sweet, Catholic author, speaker, certified life and relationship coach, and your host today for Catholic Match Live. I'm so excited. One of my favorite people in the universe is here with us, Professor Janet Smith, who on her email signature says, retired, tired, but not, what do you say, Janet? Not
That's
down
down
and
and
gone.
out.
Right.
Tired and retired, but not down and out.
And I love it. That's for a lot of us old Catholic people. So welcome. Let me tell you a little bit about Janet if you haven't heard very much about her. If you haven't, it's crazy. She's wonderful. She's a professor, retired from Sacred Heart Major Seminary. She really specializes in ethics, bioethics, sexual ethics. She's the author of numerous essays, Humanae Vitae, A Generation Later. She really has done a deep dive into Humanae Vitae and the thoughts of Saint John Paul II. She's been on Geraldo, Fox News, CNN, EWTN, and today, ta-da, on Catholic Match Live. So before I introduce her, one more. What?
Just keep going up and up and up.
I know, exactly. You're at the pinnacle. I have to say this, and this is how I first heard about Janet. I got this CD back in the day called Contraception, Why Not? And it was a clear and concise and common sense presentation of the church's teachings on contraception, on married love. It was beautiful. And we don't know, it's been years now. It's been distributed at least 2 million copies, but it's everywhere. And we'll talk about that before we wrap up today. Janet, welcome. Tell us where you are now. You're not really retired. You're really doing other stuff still, really?
Yeah, I'm recycled, I guess you would say. I retired about 2.5 years ago, and a lot of the reason for retiring was because of the sex abuse crisis in the church, and I felt particularly called to try to see if there was anything I could do to set the church aright, and especially to help victims. I mean, I just felt devastated. I mean, totally devastated. And I started writing some columns. So a few victims have approached me and asked me if there were ways I could help, and I've tried. I don't know that we've had any success except human contact, which is important. They were just so happy that someone that had some sort of profile in the church cared about what they've suffered. And I'm not at all proud at how the church has handled this and continues to handle it. It seems to me that denial and cover up are still very much the way they approach things. Victims are considered to be the problem. The victims are the problem. Make demands.
It's deep and old. When you said that, I think about in the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve hiding and covering up. That's been part of the natural response to when we know we've done something and we don't want to get found out. It's horrible. I agree. And you've done some beautiful work. You've worked with seminarians and priests for so many years, and I can only imagine how much they love your wisdom and your warmth and everything that you have to offer. You recently went to a foreign country. Tell us about that.
Yes, I was invited by an absolutely fantastic priest, a Father Alex, who is in charge of the spiritual direction of all the seminaries in Uganda, of which there are many, many, many. And I only went to the theology seminaries, which are the seminaries for the men who have 4 more years to study theology. And each one of them, I went to 5, each one of them has 250 seminarians. Unbelievable.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And 20 faculty or so. And it was just an opportunity of a lifetime. I mean, he said, would you come? Would you ever consider coming? I said, I'd empty out my bank account to come. I'm just a little dramatic, but anyway, it was definitely worth every cost that it required. Just seeing the country, the country's about 40 some percent Catholic, another 30 some percent Anglican, and then the rest are Muslims and this, that, and the other thing. But they're 100% believers in God. 100%.
Wow.
Ugandans believe in God. And the Catholic Church is very present. The number of Catholic schools, Catholic hospitals are just in your face driving down the street. A sign, at one point I started to, and I just didn't continue, but just to take like within, a couple mile range, the number of signs that say Saint Mother Kevin's School, St. Peter's this.
Wow.
It's just
That's encouraging.
It's very encouraging. I was very impressed with the faculties of these schools. They have very few resources. The men don't even have textbooks. The instruction is just by lecture. So I've got a little project going, trying to collect books for Uganda. We'll see how far that goes. But I was the fact that they had me and they were willing to let me say anything I wanted to say, which is not the case in U.S. seminaries. If I had said some of the things that I said in Uganda, boom, I would have been out of the seminaries in a minute.
Wow. Yeah. And that's disturbing too, but how wonderful. And that gives me great encouragement to hear about this. Well, your focus has always been on love and responsibility. That was the name of, St. John Paul II's beautiful book, that foundational. And he talks in that book about the stages of falling in love. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, it really was besides Humanae Vitae itself, I would say and it was written before Humanae Vitae. It was written in 1959. Right. And it's the most brilliant philosophical treatment, I think, of sexual ethics that can be found. He claims not to be using scripture, though it sneaks in at a few places, right kind of places. But he's trying to show that there are certain truths that have to guide everything that we do in respect to sexuality. And the major truth is that sex, and it's interesting, most of us will say things like sex leads to babies. Those of us who know that sex leads to babies. But he says sex leads to parenthood, right? Parenthood. And that if you're engaging in the act of sexual intercourse, you have to be prepared to be a parent, which is very cool because it means that the person you marry must be a suitable partner for parenting with you. And so sort of the number one criteria for future spouse is, could we be good parents together? Now, obviously, there's a lot you learn about parenting as you engage in it, but you have to see some fundamental qualities in the other person, and responsibility is so much a part of it. Do these people take responsibility for the consequences of their actions? So he actually does start, when he's talking about love, he starts with the sexual urge and says that's where everything starts. Someone walks in a room and you go, oh, I'd like to know that person, and you might either laugh or find out they're a liberal Democrat, and it just it might just completely, disintegrate. But if by following up, you say, there's 15 men in this room, but that's the one that somehow has caught my eye. So you'll want to either find a way to talk to him or get him interested in talking to you. And then, so John Paul II in Cura Boitiva says that often people squander what he calls the raw material of love. And this is the raw material of love, is this initial attraction to the other person. Of course, that doesn't have to be the first thing. You might become friends with a person and then later find yourself sexually attracted, which you didn't really experience at the start. But that's a major part of the whole relationship. And then he says, you have to always stay in reality. Try to stay out of fantasy. I mean, women are inclined to want, again, think that he is a god, and you any good quality you have, you magnify, and any bad quality you overlook. All right. And the same thing in that women tend to be more what he calls, and it's not quite the exact same meaning we have calls sentimental, which means that we just love the emotions that we feel. Right. Someone finds me attractive, someone's going to provide for me, someone, again, just simply enjoys my company. And the males, of course, are more drawn to sensuality. I touched her skin, she flipped her hair in a certain way. She smiles in a way that just sends him over the moon. So
Right.
it doesn't necessarily have to be raw sexuality, but still it's so very physical, which of course is not just physical. For males, it indicates a reality behind the physical. The
Right.
fact that they're so drawn to a woman's smile, well, that indicates to him a kind of a warmth and welcoming and nurturing. It's not just the physical smile, it's a sign of something deeper. And he said, but the same way he can divinize us, think that a male can think that we're a goddess. And again, there's nothing wrong. So he says you have to keep coming back to reality. He calls it testing your love, testing it, making certain that it's based on reality and not fantasy. And so it has to come to the point eventually where you care so much for this person that you would never want to do anything that would harm the other person, which premarital sex does, which having a baby outside of wedlock does. And so
Right.
you say, the reason I never want to engage in premarital sex is precisely because I love you. All right. And that would be harmful if we did this. And so you step back from that and then you test yourself, because you say, if I'm willing to go ahead with this, I'm not really looking for what's best for this person. I'm looking
So,
what's most pleasurable for me. And
uh,
so, and ultimately, it's going to be, again, would we do well having children with each other? Because that's intrinsic to this whole relationship. And I mean, I had a friend, a former student of mine, who, when she left college and went off to graduate school, she fell madly in love with this young man. She was a good Catholic. He was a lapsed Catholic and absolutely hated the church. They engaged in sex. She at some point stepped back and said, "This is not what I believe in. This is wrong. I'm not going to do it." But she couldn't extricate herself from the relationship. She was just wild about him. And
right.
once, uh, I've never met a man that fascinates me so much. I don't think I'll ever be as attracted to another man as much as I am to him, but I can never see him being the father of our children, my children. She said, I believe in God. I want my children to be in the Catholic Church. I said, maybe you want to write that down somewhere between 25 and 100 times and see what
Yeah,
happens.
yeah, yeah.
So she did. She broke up with him. And years later,
Wow.
she met a wonderful man that she was crazy about and has had children with and is very happily married. But
Oh,
it's one of those deal breakers that you say, if I can't trust this person to be a good parent to our children, they don't have the qualities even to be a good companion to a trip to Europe, honestly. You
right.
know, so it's not just about children. It's saying that the qualities that you need in order to be a good parent are pretty much the same qualities you need to be a good spouse. All right. So, but it focuses it on, you can lie to yourself a lot about yourself. Oh, I can put up with this and I can put up with that. As I think this young woman would have said, I can put up with it as there's no children in the picture. But when children come in the picture, I can't put up with it anymore.
I'm taking a wild turn here. Is this I in my work, I people recognize that they have the inner child within themselves.
Hmm.
And that a lot of times that spouse, if when they don't see them as a child or know that there's still that childlike part of us, they'll be completely different. I mean, a responsible spouse would be as tender, as self-sacrificing, as anything as a parent would be to his or her own child. You're that way with the spouse too. So those of you, our audience is a little older, and this is still good to talk about. If you're not talking about children right now, it doesn't matter in a certain sense. Janet, you are saying that
Yep.
those qualities of good parenthood should also be there to be a good spouse.
Right. And you used a key word that Carol Wojtyla loved, which is the word tenderness. He
Mhm.
said that you have to move from a sexual touch to a tender touch. And he
Mhm.
said, you think of a grandparent with a child. There's nothing
Mhm.
sexual about that embrace, but it entirely conveys love, concern, tenderness. And he said that absolutely has to become a part of the relationship. That not every touch is sexual, but it's tender, saying, I care about you. I'm going to take care of you. I'm here for you. It's not all about me. I'm here for you. That's a grandfather hugging a child is not saying at all, this is about me. I'm here.
Right.
entirely for you.
Right.
And,
Right.
and then that's for John Paul II in Cure Voitiri. He says at times you definitely will have to break off the relationship, because he said once you realize that maybe you're the problem, it's all about me, or this other person simply is not mature enough or is too selfish, even though you can be powerfully sexually attracted to this person. But he also says if you let the sexual attraction, he says he doesn't want it to go away. He wants it to be managed so it doesn't take over and again make you blind to who this person really is. So he says you have to keep verifying your love. He uses the word verifying your love. What is it based upon? Unfortunately, you said you have an older audience, and unfortunately for a lot of our older audience, a relationship can be based upon this person is available. And it may
Right. Right.
it may not have much to do with you. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with wanting companionship, and there's nothing wrong with not saying I need my dream prince or princess or something. That's maturity. All right. So, I mean, they use this word I don't particularly like. It's settling. You're going to settle for something that isn't way up there. And I always say, no. What you want to do is really value what's here and see if that is something on which you can really build a solid and good relationship. You might not be over the moon in love with this person, which if you watch Moonstruck, right?
Oh, I love that movie. Love that movie.
Great line where the mother asks Cher, "Do you love him?" And she said,
Oh,
"Yeah."
Mom.
Oh,
Mom.
yeah. Well, do I ever? Oh, that's too bad. Because all the mother can see is that love just gets disillusioned because again, they weren't doing any kind of testing. It was just,
Right.
igniting the sexual desire and accompanied with romance, which is making a god or a goddess out of the person you're attracted to. That's a recipe for disaster.
It is. The testing is a stage we don't want to go through because we're afraid of loss. We're afraid if we test it and it doesn't rise up.
Someone's interested. Finally, I'm interested. Finally.
Right. And I love the word that you used. It's not settling, it's valuing what you have.
Right.
If there's value to it, if you can see the value, you appreciate that and you embrace that value. And I know a lot of people, the older singles, especially as they get older and they don't think anybody else is coming along. And, what do I do? Do I settle? And I love what you just said. I'm going to use that from now. No, you value what you have and what you can.
Because
So
there are different values at different parts of life, and companionship is a huge value as you get older. And so it's not settling; it's saying what I need in a person is different now than what it was 50 years ago.
right, right. Janet, how important has celibacy or being single been to what you do as a woman?
Well, I know there's women that what we say about them, they can do it all. All right. I'm definitely not one of those women. I can hardly do one thing at a time, let alone two. But yeah, I just on this trip to Uganda again, I was with this very holy priest, 38 years old, who clearly, he just lives every minute for other people. You can just see he's how do I need to approach this person in a sense to be Christ to them, and we were all over the country, and both of us every once in a while look and say, how could we do this if we weren't celibate? It just, I mean, I had a friend with me, Kevin Wells. You might know Kevin.
I
Kevin's
do.
married with 3 children, and he was able to take off the time to come, but it was much harder for him to do that than it was for us. And obviously, his wife and his children are sacrificing in order to enable him to take part in this, which is beautiful that they're, and that I think it's a good decision, but you can't do it that often. I could do it if I had the physical stamina, whenever I wanted to, because I'm not leaving anybody behind that needs my presence for all sorts of things. So, and it isn't just you're not just a glorified, as we say, social worker, that just has more time. It's that you have more reason, in a sense, to just focus on Jesus and what he wants of me. As St. Paul says, you've only got to satisfy Jesus. The poor married person has to satisfy a human being. Satisfying Jesus is a whole lot easier than satisfying.
Well, that line itself is gold. That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
Well, he tells you what he wants you to do, and he gives you the power to do it. That's amazing.
Exactly.
Yeah, and
Exactly.
he's not difficult. I mean, he's not sinful. All right. So you don't have any of his, and it's only my sins that are the obstacle to moving forward. And so even just the time to pray is just extraordinarily, that you can have so much time to pray and go to services and all sorts of things that you can't if you're married. St. Paul says all of this. He says that if you have a spouse, that has to be your, and maybe not your primary focus, but it's way up there. You can't neglect these duties. It's very freeing not to have these duties, not just for time to do good works, but time to deepen the relationship with Jesus. And then that
That's
becomes
so
really
true.
what your focus is.
Yeah, I have a brother who he long time ago left the Catholic faith, but he loves God and he's pastored a church
Mm.
in California for years, and he's a good man. People love him. And he told me one time recently, he said, I love my wife and 5 kids more than anything. And I love Jesus more than anything. And I love my people in my church. He said, but I have been under so much pressure and stress all my life trying to
Mm.
know which one do I go to first, which one really needs me first. And he goes, Rose, I can't even believe I'm saying this, but I should have picked one and not the other.
Oh, God bless him. That's
You know,
honesty.
but I heard that. I heard that. And his love isn't diminished, but his capacity is limited. And I think that's what you're saying. Your capacity is able to be given more fully.
Yeah, you just have so many energies, etc. I mean, one of my friends used the Italian word disponibile, to describe the celibate, meaning you're at other people's beck and call
Oh,
in a way in which you can't be. If you're married, your beck and call has to be your wife and children first, not some
right,
parishioner. All right,
right.
unless it's you're valuing goods, but still your spouse and children have to come first. That's your primary vocation, your primary duty. The celibate can say the person in front of me is right now my primary vocation. And even that has to be certainly prioritized in various.
Right.
But there's just a difference to being able to take a phone call and give your full attention to someone when you're not married with children than when you are.
I wish we could talk for hours. This is really good stuff, and I love it. We have a bunch of questions coming in. So, how do you feel about moving over, and we'll tackle some of those?
Or you do whatever.
Okay, I like that. Okay, one of the questions says, "What do you do when you hate being single, but you're single now and you have no prospects?" So, let me ask you, Janet. What we know what you like about being available to people and in the unmarried state. But is there anything you don't like, and what do you do about it?
Kind of a lot of my life, um, envying those who were married and had children, and I hoped it would come my way. It never did. Uh, I'm now a consecrated virgin. Been that for now about coming up on 12 years, or it's been 12 years.
Yes, beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah, it's been wonderful. Way beyond my wildest expectations. I didn't know what I was getting into. And I didn't really imagine. I just felt I had a call to it and I just better do it. But I found even now, I mean, I moved into a house by myself that's a little bit further from most of my friends than I would like to be. And so one day I was feeling a little lonely. And I just said to God, listen, God, if I'm going to live alone, make me like it. Which was a very different prayer from "Don't let me live alone." And
Yes,
that
yes,
was a huge step for me, huge. And now I honestly love being alone. I have so many things to do, and I'm still trying to keep all the social things going, but it's not like I should have more social life. I should have this. It's like, no, this is what God has it's given me, and He's enabling me to love it. So I think instead of saying, God, don't make me single, say, God, make me love singleness for as long as I'm single. You know,
right.
I
Beautiful,
you know
beautiful.
what I want. I mean, it's a very funny. One of my brothers, when one of my brothers died, he fought his cancer like you can't believe, and we were praying, praying, praying for a cure. He lived 3.5 longer
Mm,
than he should have, But after about 3 years, I said, listen, Gary, I said, you're dying. I said, if God decides to cure you, then he knows what we want. I said, but I think it's time to prepare for death rather than to keep imploring God for a miraculous cure. I said, are you ready for that? He said, absolutely. All right. So the next 6 months were very beautiful. It was no
Mm.
longer saying,
Mm.
God, I want a cure. I want a cure. Instead, it was, all right, God, you've told us that heaven is on the horizon. What is that really? What does that really mean? And how can I prepare for that? And it changed everything from being desperate for a cure to saying, I accept this. Now I need to prepare for this. And mostly preparing was getting hope, just hope that this will be the most incredible thing beyond what we can ever imagine. And it was very interesting, but one of my spiritual director once told me when my mother died, he said, ask God to show you how she entered heaven. It's very kind of, but, and that was interesting too when I did that. But with my brother, I had a sense, and he's a very good man. And we can never say who's in heaven, but one day I kind of looked up and he had most incredible blue eyes, and they got blue eyes in his face, and he just it was like he said to me, of course I didn't hear an audible, but Janet, we had no idea.
That's what scripture says.
Yes,
it has never entered into the mind of man. No.
I think that whole preparation, so what I'm saying is, instead of making demands upon God for, we want to be married, and we want to be married to a certain kind of man, and we want him to have this income or these children or this situation or whatever, and just demanding of God, and just say, no, the prayer is so important to every single state in life. And to use that time when you're single to really lean into the Lord and just say, we're having trouble here. We're not on the same page. And this is a mantra I didn't learn until maybe, 5 to 10 years ago, is God's will is always better than my will. All right. Yeah. And if there's conflict between me and God, I hope I lose. Yes. All right. And that's what you say, here I am again alone on a weekend, and all my friends are going off to a football game and having so much time with their spouses. And here I am. And not that I ever want to go to football games. So I'm not somebody else's voice here. I have a friend who's a single woman. She's been married once, a child out of wedlock. She's truly desperate to be married. Everything, she loves children, she loves family, she loves coupledom, she loves the things that people do as couples, as I'm sure so many of your listeners do. Right. And and she keeps moving closer to just saying God's will. And stop, if you start envying. This is one of my little tips. When I was younger and envious of those who were married and had children, I had a little trick, which I would call one of my friends who was married and had children, and I would say, how are things? And after about 20 minutes, I was not so sure that I was in life. Okay.
Love that.
Yeah, we have all these rosy glasses. We see them nicely dressed up to go to a movie with each other or to an event. You don't see the hour and a half of mean-spirited arguing that goes behind them, or you see all these adorable children, and you don't understand that. And not that those are all meaningful things, and you wouldn't want to say stay away from marriage because it's difficult. No, but it is difficult. Right. And so you want to start to, because they're looking at you. I mean, I can't tell you how many people say, oh, gee, I'd give anything to have your life. Like I said, you don't have a clue. Right. You don't have a clue what my life is. Right. And it looks good in certain respects. And it is. It's wonderful in many respects. But there are challenges that most people wouldn't like at all. And luckily I have come to like those challenges. As married people eventually will say, all right, my husband and I are disagreeing on this, but it's another opportunity for us to work something out and get closer in the long run. But at first it's like, what went wrong here? See, nothing went wrong. You're two human beings. But so get a realistic sense. Still stay. It's just like John Paul II said, stay in reality. Don't think, well, if I got married, everything would be better. I could do this and I could do that and I could do that. Just as some married people are saying, if I could only get rid of this weight on my shoulder,
Right, right.
you
Yeah,
know,
don't live in fantasy island. That's exactly what it is.
really, and just keep asking whatever's hard about it for you. Just say, God, make me love this that I now hate. And there's other tricks you do. I don't know if they're right tricks, but modes of coping. Most of us think there's a whole bunch of movies we'd like to watch, a whole bunch of books we'd like to read, a whole bunch of friends we'd like to be in more contact with. Again, when you're starting to fall into that self-pity, I don't have anything to do this weekend, blah, blah, blah. Go to prayer. Go to prayer first thing and just say, God, how would you like me to use my time this weekend? I'd rather be doing this, but evidently that's not in the works. So what is it you would like me to do? And he might just say, well, call your sister, or, go across town and visit this person, or read that book you bought, spent $25 for, and it's just sitting there, you know.
That's
So
interesting that you say that, because I've had that prayer, and he has turned around, and again, not the audible voice, and says, well, Rose, what do you want to do? If you can't do that, what else would you do? And I knew right away, read
yeah,
that extra book, watch that movie, go see that friend. And then it was like he said, well, that's pleasing to me. That's in my will. Go do what you want.
that's a beautiful, I love that phrase. That's pleasing to me. It is amazing. One of my friends she was getting into I love kayaking, and she was getting into kayaking. She was sort of always nervous that she'd spend too much time kayaking and not doing God's will. I said, are you kidding? I said, God is just saying, I'm so happy she's kayaking. I made
Yes.
trees. I made these birds. I made this water. I want her to enjoy it. I don't want her out there being nervous. I don't know if I'm really doing God's will. I said, if you're enjoying his creation and you're not neglecting some duty, this is a Sunday
Right.
afternoon, you have none except enjoying God. And anyway, I think it's so important to realize that God wants you to enjoy these things. I find usually, I try to work hard, and then I have dinner, and there's many things I could do after dinner, and sometimes I'm a little lost. Again, I don't know which of the many things I should do. I do a little bit of evening prayer. It's not even, again, like I get any kind of message or anything. It's just I get up from my seat and I know exactly what to do. You said, where
Right.
did that come from?
Right.
It's because I reoriented myself. I wasn't looking to see what I thought I wanted to do or even what I should do. Instead, I put myself in God, with God, not thinking about what I need to do or should do or want to do, just trying to do the prayers that I've pledged I will do. At the end of those prayers, for some reason, I'm just floating right off to what a good.
Yeah. That's the fruit. That's the fruit of prayer. It's beautiful. It's really beautiful. And I love what you're really talking about is the word you used earlier, is you are valuing your state on that day or in that week or in that time. You're not looking out to the fantasy island, what I could be doing. I value what I have here right now. I see
That's
the value in it. I see the pleasure in it. Maybe I don't feel it right now, but God help me. Yeah.
and I think there's certain things that people have to be, how sorry we're going to be when we get to heaven. And we're never going to be sorry about anything. But if we were able to be sorry about something, it would be that we didn't notice all the ways in which God was loving us. All right.
Mm, mm.
No. And then we'll say, oh my gosh, he gave me this and I never thanked him for that. And oh my gosh, he was here present guiding me in this and I never noticed it. And so I think one thing to do is to take that, that examine of consciousness, which is not just looking for your sinfulness, but finding the way that God has been present in your life in a day, and in a way you've been conscious of God being present in your day. Then I find things like relationships with nieces and nephews, and even the children of my friends. People have their own children. That is necessarily their first concern. And
Right.
they have a relatively hard time shifting their interest to other children because they've got so much to do with their own. But
Right.
this was going to be one of my tips. I told you a tip of how to get.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
This is good.
When I was teaching at the University of Dallas, I had a very good friend who lived just a block away, Julie. Julie eventually had 8 children, and I saw her sort of move right through the whole 8 of them. And I finally figured out, it was brilliant, that I called her at about 10 to 6 in the evening, some night of the week. And I would say, hi, Julie, how are things? we chatted for a minute. She said, "Have you eaten yet?" I said, "Actually, I haven't." She said, "Well, why don't you just come over? We'll just put an extra plate at the table." I every week, at least once, I got
Mm,
her house. And one reason she loved to do it is because, I would interact with the kids and they would
right.
interact with me. So they saw she would learn more about who they were and what they were doing. And to see someone else appreciate your children is really nice. You
That's
say,
very true.
it's
Very true.
so the attention, the time you have again, and the freedom you have to pay attention to people that aren't yours. All right. Whereas a married person has to pay first and foremost attention to theirs. But you can pay attention to other people's children, to your nieces and nephews, travel with them, all sorts of things. I have single friends and I haven't quite met their challenge. But with every niece or nephew, they had an intention of going on some special trip with them when they were around, 12, 14, or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just, and sometimes they get cousins from different siblings that would like to get to know each other and go with both of them on a trip. And it was forevermore a beautiful memory. And they got to know you and you got to know them. And the parents were just thrilled out of their mind that there
Right.
was being showed this kind of special attention.
I did that a lot in my many single years. Like I have many nieces and nephews, and
Yeah.
mine was taking them to San Francisco, where I had lived, and I love the city. And
Hmm.
I'll never forget, I took two of my nieces, again, 10 and 12, and I took them to Fisherman's Wharf, and we took them to Union Square, and we saw the cable cars and everything, right? And when they came home and they're running down their mom's driveway, she goes, "Well, did you guys have a good time?" And the youngest one goes, Mom, it was so wonderful." She goes, "What?" She goes, "We got to ride in a real taxi cab."
Yeah, right.
I'm like, "That's all you remember? That
Mhm.
was it?" But it was a fun, and you know what? We tell that story every time we get together. We laugh, as you say. It's a beautiful, beautiful memory. I would not trade those single times for anything because of that. It's rich.
Yeah,
So,
but people can miss it. They can miss it by moping, and
right,
instead of saying, I've got an opportunity now that I may never have before again, to develop these relationships. Do it now.
right. Okay, let's hear this next question kind of fits in. How do I manage resentment when everybody in my social circle is married and has a family and I don't? Does
Yeah,
that
well,
work?
well, again, um, first of
Resentment.
all, I mean, stop navel-gate, stop envying. I mean, there's one of the Psalms I just read today. It's how you envy the sleek and the rich and
Mm,
and that it's so easy to do. I mean, I haven't been free of that in my lifetime for sure.
right. I know,
I'm
me too.
I was full of envy for people who had things. What always helped me, honestly, is that somehow when I was in that kind of self-pitying um, condition, you walk outside and you see someone who's handicapped, you know, or something, and you go, "Oh my gosh, I think my life is hard. What is that life?" And there's a certain strange entitlement we have that we all think we should have everything that we want or the normal things that make people happy, as opposed to seeing people who have lost their spouses, lost their children, are physically, mentally handicapped, people who are fighting schizophrenia or institutions their whole lives. You sort of want to ask, like, why was I spared that? And why am I looking over there as opposed to over here and saying, yeah, again, who knows if that's as good as it looks? That's no business of mine. But number one is to say, stop envying because you have no idea what's going on over here. And then the other hand is you say, look at what I have been given and why
Right.
aren't you grateful for that? I mean, I'm not a poor person living in a mud hut in Uganda. So, how can what does that person say looking at me? And I want to say, I don't know why God blessed me so much with all these things and didn't bless you. I don't know, but I'm not
Right.
around envying these other people.
Right. When you were saying that, I was thinking about COVID, and I remember when we couldn't get toilet paper, and there was a time we couldn't get eggs, and I wanted some eggs, and my next door neighbor came over with a dozen eggs, and I was like, I was like, "Oh, thank you, Jesus," And now today, though, because of that time of deprivation and being aware of that, every time I go to the store and buy eggs, I think of how wonderful it is to just be able to buy a dozen eggs. It sounds funny to a lot of people, but I think if you can maybe look back to the times, when you were deprived of something and you did feel that your hands were empty, did you turn to the Lord? Did he bless you? Was he there for you? Did you get through it? And I like what navel gazing. It's what we do. So
Question.
look backwards, look forward, look around, look up, get out of the house. That's something that I do sometimes too. What about you? Sometimes you just have to get out of the house and go to the store and see other people, and then you forget all about yourself.
There's something, Humans of New York. I think that's that it was.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I remember one time they had this old lady just sitting on the stoop of her apartment building. And she said, I just have a rule. You get out of the house every day and something interesting will happen.
Right. I love that.
So true.
Yeah.
You get out of the house and something interesting will happen.
Yeah. Or get offline. Get off the computer. Get off the computer.
That's right.
Same thing.
Get outside, go for a walk. I mean, the minute you start feeling self-pitying, go for a walk.
Okay. Our time is going by.
Go for a walk and have some chocolate, and everything will get better.
Wait. Go back to that chocolate part.
Chocolate. Oh, chocolate first. Right. That's true.
Okay. Milk or dark?
Dark.
Okay, good. Well, once you've had dark, I don't know, it's hard to go back to milk. It's so bland, right?
Yeah. Oh, it's for kids.
Okay. One more quick question.
Yeah.
How can I get better at trusting God?
Just do it. I mean, I asked one of my friends once, it was basically kind of a contemptor. So how do you get to love prayer? And he said, just do it. Just keep doing it until you do. And you'd like to say, it means praying and just, okay, this might help. I had a priest friend who, you just all day long, people give him their troubles. And at the end of the day, he would go in front of the altar and the crucifix, and he would just put all of it in front of God and said, take care of this. And he had a sense, he said, it was like he was dumping all this garbage in front of God. And I said, I tried that one day, and God said, no. This is not garbage. He said, these are gifts. This is what I came to solve all of these things. Every time you bring me a trouble of yours, anybody else's, I don't say, one more burden. I say, one more thing the two of us together, because you brought it to me. So now you share in whatever it is that results from this, even though all I'm doing is just saying, God, I don't know what to do about this. You do something about it. That's still my shifting it over there. And so with the trusting God is just to keep trying to do that. I remember one time, I was at Notre Dame. I didn't get tenure. I was going to have to move. I was afraid of being lonely all summer long. And so I said, God, please don't let me be lonely all summer long. And one day I'm changing the sheets on my bed for what seems like my guest bed, what seems like the 100th time. I'm saying, God, all I'm ever doing is changing sheets because people are coming to visit. And he said, I thought you didn't want to be lonely. I thought, oh my God, what you ask for. But it's not noticing. It's like going from, it seems empty, the horizon seems empty, to it being over full, and not realizing maybe this happened because of the prayer I said over there. So we say we don't trust God largely because we don't get what we want immediately. But if we're honest about it and patient, before long something shows up that's very clearly an answer to that prayer if you're being attentive.
Right. But if our focus is always over there, we're not going to see all the good stuff.
I want someone who's 6'2" with dark hair and curly hair and blue eyes, and this, that, and the other thing is that that doesn't come my way. God is not providing.
Right.
It's ridiculous, but that's what we do. We make it very precise that if you answer my prayer, it has to be this way, as opposed to saying, here I am, help me with this, however you want to help me with this, because your will is better than mine. Your ideas are better than my ideas. Your solution.
Okay. And now you can say that in your intellect, but you have your emotions that are fighting you. God's will is horrible. No, it's not fun. So again, we talked about this earlier. Don't
You're
lead with your
yourself.
emotions.
You're holding on to a lie.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
for some reason, it's easier to hold on to a lie than to submit yourself to the truth. It's easier for me to sit and whine about something as opposed to saying, yeah, my life is not bad. I'm wrong. I thought it was horrible. It's easier to sit and say, I never get anything I want. Everybody else gets what they want. Everybody else is happy. I'm miserable. As opposed to saying, you have to, a very important phrase is that true? Is that true? When you're saying to something, you're saying, everybody else is having fun this weekend but me. Now just ask yourself, is that true?
Right. Right.
Is that true? I'm not going to have any fun this weekend. Is that true? And if you're honest, it's those things, those kinds of bizarre blanket statements are false. But somehow we're more comfortable with that. That feeling we've gotten used to. The feeling of adventure. That okay, there's something collapsed this weekend. I thought these people were going to come. We're going to do this. Now it's nothing's happening. I don't know what to do. Instead of saying, all right, well, let's see what God has in mind. Let's see what He's going to do for me. Say, all right, well, while I'm waiting, I might as well clean a closet. I might as well go for a walk. I might as well look at this sale over here that I've been wanting to go look at. I might as well do this. As long as I'm waiting, and then all of a sudden you're doing something that's, it's silly things, but I'm a little bit lost, and I don't know what I'm doing, and oh God, this Saturday's going to be long, and all of a sudden I'm at I see a sign, book sale, library, all right, but they have 10 children's book for $1. 10, you can fill as many bags as you want. I'm filling bags like crazy to give to the pregnancy help center and everything. And you're just saying, so much fun. I get to pick out the books I know, and I don't know this one, but it looks kind of interesting. I did not plan that for my day.
Right.
It wouldn't have happened if I sat home and felt sorry for myself.
Right.
And you have to be, as I say, attentive, because we're saying, I thought my weekend was going to be this. It's not going to be this. Obviously, it's going to be miserable because it's not going to be what I wanted it to be. And
nobody likes to be around that. Nobody
likes to be that.
No, I know. It gets to you. So stay in reality, avoid fantasy, test your love, look around, be attentive.
Is it true? When you start saying miserable things, you just, I never get to do this. Other people always get to do that. You say, is that true?
Right.
Even if you say things like, I'm a lazy person, we all have negative tracks in our mind.
Yes, we do.
You have to say, is that true? Yeah, I have moments of laziness, but I'm not always lazy. Don't talk.
Right.
All those things.
All this, this takes time to be able to stop and think about these things. And most of us don't think enough about these important things. We talk about them, but we don't really go into the deep thinking like that you're talking about. So that's my prayer for everybody who's following us in this session. Do some more thinking. Janet has given us some beautiful tips, some great stories. I just love spending this time with you. It's too short. Maybe we'll do it again. But Janet, thank you. Where can people get a hold of you?
Oh, they can't. I am not.
Oh, I love the answer. Oh. Wait a minute. What about your guest bedroom? Come on, those sheets and everything.
No, I've got all this stuff to do, but I do have a website, janetsmith.org, where my talks and articles and everything is there.
Okay, good. And I really encourage you, go back and listen to Contraception, Why Not, if it's been a while, and make sure that you give it to the younger members of your family and friends. It's just a beautiful, beautiful gift to the church given to us by the incomparable Janet Smith. And I'm not going to call you the thing I called you before that you got mad at me and you forgave me for, but we'll hold that for another time.
Just let me recommend this too. I mean, kids are always asking, what should I get you for Mother's Day or your birthday? So just listen to this talk and talk to me about it.
That's a great idea.
And so before, now it's, it's everything's online, but it used to be parents would leave the CD or the tape in the car. And before long, the kids would get bored with everything else and actually listen to it. And they'd come home and, man, I can't believe what I just heard. So just ask them to do it for you. Just say, if you would just do this for me, it would mean a lot.
Good.
So
I think that's a great idea. Let's get that out there. Again, thank you, Janet Smith.
thank you.
God bless you, and we can't hear more of your adventures sometime in the future.
Okay.
Okay, everybody. Good to see you again. We will see you next time on Catholic Match Live.